Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, last Friday in Formula 1, we found out that McLaren are finally going to divorce Honda and have grabbed themselves a supply of Renault engines for 3 seasons starting in 2018. Toro Rosso have signed a long-term multi-year deal with Honda to be supplied by their power units from next season as well. And Carlos Sainz is going out on loan to Renault for 1 season from Red Bull / Toro Rosso, whichever way you look at it. However, out of all of those, who has got the best deal? Quick disclaimer, quick couple of disclaimers. Firstly, apologies for the voice. I appear to be coming down with a cold. Having spent all summer suffering with hay fever, my body's decided to give me a break by giving me a cold, which is lovely. Thank you so much for that. But the main disclaimer, guys, is that this is just all my opinion. I know it's a topic that's actually been quite divisive. Some think that McLaren have got a great deal, others think Toro Rosso have got a great deal, but this is just my opinion, guys. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. But in my opinion, there is one party that has got the best deal out of all of that, and I will come to that a little bit later in the video. But let's get to it, guys. I think we can all agree that McLaren had to do something. They absolutely had to. Even if they couldn't get the best engine, they couldn't stick with Honda. Yes, they're going from the worst engine to the second worst engine, but there was no way they could stay for another year or even another 3 years. Could you imagine that with Honda as they are? Although Honda are now making some pretty crazy claims for 2018, which we will come to in a moment, but there was absolutely no way they could continue with Honda. The performance wasn't there. There was no improvement. They made all those improvements in 2016. The engine actually looked all right. It wasn't great. It wasn't going to be the best by a long way, but they were certainly getting better. And then they decided, despite all that progress, to take steps back in 2017 and start again, which still absolutely baffles me right now. It really does. And that first pre-season test in 2017 was absolutely horrendous. McLaren obviously then decided, we've got to do something. We have to change our engine. It's a shame they couldn't get a Mercedes engine after all the years they worked together. It would have been nice if Mercedes had maybe taken a little bit of pity on them and given them an engine. But I totally get why Mercedes didn't. You know, they already refused Red Bull because they know that Red Bull would beat Mercedes with the same engine in the back. And they were probably fearing the same about McLaren. And Ferrari was never going to happen because, let's face it, Spygate, among other things, huge rivals. They were never, ever going to team up. Even if they rebadged it, it was never going to happen. So Renault, realistically, was their only option. I mean, it's not a terrible engine. The Renault is not a terrible engine. It's just nowhere near Ferrari or Mercedes. Yes, Red Bull are making it look good, but that's a chassis. You know, Adrian Newey, not officially involved, but he will be involved somewhere down the line. So that is always going to be able to compete with Ferrari and Mercedes on the right track, obviously. So places like Hungary, Singapore, Monaco, etc., they're always going to do really, really well at. But then the power circuits, as we've seen, they really struggle. And McLaren are going to get that next year. But anything is a step forward for McLaren. So I completely get why they've left Honda, and I completely agree with why they've split with Honda. It's just really frustrating that they couldn't make it work, because I would love to have seen another era of Formula 1 where McLaren and Honda dominate. That would be great, wouldn't it, for the sport? Somebody beating Mercedes that isn't Ferrari. And that's not a knock at Ferrari. It's just that we know that the big 2 engine manufacturers are Mercedes and Ferrari, and they are going to compete year in, year out until we get a different engine formula, which, I don't know, from all accounts doesn't sound like it's going to change too much in 2021. So Renault, McLaren, it kind of works for McLaren. As for Renault, I don't really get it. I don't really get from Renault, why they have done this. Whether they've been forced into the corner a little bit, I don't know. We'll never know the political reasons until somebody at the top releases an autobiography or something like that in 10 years' time. But something, I don't know if they've been forced into a corner with it, because Mercedes said no, Ferrari said no, we don't want them beating us, that's that. And Renault have said, yeah, why not? You know, and part of me, I look at it and maybe think Red Bull have pushed this in a sense. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but just bear with me. Red Bull obviously have the Renault engine and have rebranded it as Tag Heuer or Tag Heuer, however you want to say it, and have been involved in many, many spats and all these war of words between the two, and have made proper digs at Renault in the past, despite their success, of course, through 2010 and 2013. But from Renault's commercial point of view, do they really want a team like Red Bull and a partner like Red Bull that are basically slagging them off at every opportunity? Do they really want to supply them engines, or would they rather give McLaren an engine who will call themselves McLaren Renault and will probably, as they have been, big up the engine and big up Renault a hell of a lot? That's going to be much better for them commercially and much better for McLaren commercially. So I think Red Bull have driven that in a sense, but ultimately they've kind of pushed themselves into a corner now, which we're not going to go into in this video. We know Red Bull are already looking at options for engines, and we know that 2021 is absolutely key for a lot of teams, including McLaren. But yeah, we're not going to that one just yet with Red Bull. So out of the two, McLaren and Renault, absolutely, McLaren have got the best deal out of that, because I genuinely believe that McLaren will beat Renault based on chassis next season. Absolutely. So I'm predicting we're going to have Ferrari and Mercedes scrapping at the front, and now we're going to have a fight between Red Bull and McLaren for 3rd and 4th. Genuinely do believe that. Renault, probably 5th. I don't think they're going to make the leap forward they're expecting expecting, and I still think it's going to be a few years before Renault can really challenge at the front. And to be fair, they've kind of said that themselves. They have kind of admitted that it's maybe 2021 and the engine reset, as some people are calling it. Maybe that's when they're going to make that leap forward, but they're definitely going to move up the grid very, very slowly, Renault. There's no doubt about that. They've got the money there somewhere, but they have got the money to challenge, and they have got the money to move themselves forward and developing that engine, and that is going to be definitely more attractive for McLaren and definitely better for Renault as well long term. Not to mention how great McLaren are in terms of technology. You know, they've got the fantastic technology centre at Woking and all the stuff they throw on these cars and the stuff they actually supply the FIA with to give to other teams as well, of course. Let's not forget that. Technologically, commercially, it all makes sense for Renault, but I still think where it matters, which is in terms of competition, I think McLaren have got the better end of the deal on that one. McLaren's former partners Honda have teamed up with Toro Rosso and are already talking about finishing top 3 next season. Get a grip. Seriously, have you learned nothing, Honda? Towards the end of 2014, Ron Dennis was talking about how Honda would be winning races in 2015, and Honda was saying very similar things. They were nowhere near. They could not be any further from winning Grand Prix. Ron Dennis, I don't know what he'd been smoking that day, but it was not, it just did not make any sense. Nobody believed him at that point anyway, and then for them to turn up in 2015 and be that terrible just left everybody with egg on their face. Now, at a similar time to 2014, Honda are now talking about challenging for top 3 with Toro Rosso. What? Seriously, they're going to be nowhere near the top 3. Honda will get better next year. There is no doubt about that. Honda will have a better power unit next year, 100%. However, it can't get any worse. So the only way for them is to get better. But that doesn't mean they're going to come on leaps and bounds and suddenly challenge for podiums and wins. That's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. An independent team as they claim to be, an independent work supply as they've got, did you really think Red Bull are going to let you challenge ahead of them for top 3? I don't think so, Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso obviously haven't said this. It's Honda coming out and saying this, and it's all talk, and it's obviously just a bit of posturing, but you know, it's absolutely ridiculous. However, if you look at McLaren and Fernando Alonso's look over the last few years, Honda will probably turn up next year and absolutely blow everybody away and win both world championships by Monaco. I don't know, that's mathematically impossible, but that is kind of Fernando Alonso's look of late. If, as the rumours are saying, it's true that Toro Rosso have been 40% bought out, if you like, by Honda, it's a good deal for them. We know that the Red Bull guys are wanting to get rid of Toro Rosso and sell it on. It could end up as a Honda outright, I guess, the Toro Rosso in the long term. Perhaps Honda themselves are waiting for 2021 before they buy the team out, but it would be a good deal, I think, for Honda to get their own team. It'd be a shame to see Toro Rosso fall off the grid, but they are kind of one of those teams that kind of gets passed around a little bit. They used to be Jaguar, of course. Before that, they were Stewart. So it's not something that is beyond the realms of possibility, if we're honest. I just hope for Toro Rosso's sake, if they're going to stick with this partnership, that they don't end up just down the back of the grid. From Honda's point of view, they're going to be able to develop the engine away from the spotlight, away from Fernando Alonso. So although it's going to be noticeable that Toro Rosso are struggling, which I still believe they will in 2018, at least they've not got the McLaren spotlight and all that pressure on them. They're going to be able to take their time, if you like, and get that engine developed properly. So that's probably a good thing. This year, they've admitted they've been throwing upgrades at it, hoping that they're going to stick, basically. Admitting at points that they know that they've got a part that's really, really good, but they don't actually know how reliable it is. That's something that is just, I don't know. I think that comes from McLaren pressure. If McLaren are saying to you, we need development, and Honda are not really getting things right, they're going to have to throw something at the engine just to shut McLaren up. So I think this is going to give them time. That's the deal with Toro Rosso. That is the one thing they're going to get, is time and patience to get that engine developed. It's going to be frustrating for Toro Rosso, but I think it will work out long term for Honda. And as I said, they will get better next year. But I think, again, this is another one kind of flipped, if you like, from the McLaren Renault deal, in that Honda have got the better deal out of this than Toro Rosso for sure. However, there is one party out of all of these that has got the best deal, and it isn't a team. For me, Carlos Sainz has got the best deal out of everybody in this. He's going on loan to Renault next season for 1 year, which means he gets away from this Toro Rosso Honda partnership and is going to have to avoid all of this horrible reliability problems and lack of performance and GP2 engine stuff. So he gets to avoid that. He gets a season in a much more competitive car in the Renault alongside a much better and much more challenging teammate, and he's still available if Max Verstappen and or Daniel Ricciardo leave Red Bull at the end of 2018. How good is that? That is like the perfect situation for Carlos Sainz. Had he gone anywhere permanently, he may have been out of the reckoning for a Red Bull seat, but to keep himself, I know it will have been Dr. Helmut Marko's decision to send him on loan, but to keep himself in that Red Bull family and get to go somewhere else and race in a better car and not have to deal with all the Honda issues, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant for Carlos Sainz. I genuinely do believe he's got the best deal out of everybody involved in these announcements on Friday. Yes, McLaren have got a good deal. Yes, Honda have got a good deal, but Carlos Sainz, to still keep himself in the reckoning for that Red Bull seat post 2018, 2018 is absolutely spot on and just what he will have needed. And of course, Pierre Gasly will come into that Toro Rosso seat for sure. I do not believe Matsushita will get a seat there. I don't see Red Bull changing their principle on that. He might take Kvyat's seat, who had another bad weekend, but I think that will be what will happen at Toro Rosso. It will be Gasly and probably Kvyat for next season because they're going to need some experience. But that's a completely different video. That's a completely different conversation. Well done, Carlos Sainz, and well done, Dr. Helmut Marko. Another cracking deal done there for Red Bull. But what do you guys think? Who do you think, if anybody, has got the best deal? And I also want to know, is there anybody out there that believe Honda will be competing for the top 3 on the grid next season? Do let me know in the comments below, guys. I will be back with another video later in the week, provided my voice holds up that long. And of course, Formula 1 is back in just over a week for the Malaysian Grand Prix as well. But as ever, guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.